the most valuable asset that we've got in this company is the product, and the second most valuable is the website. And there's no question our website is responsible for so much of the performance of the marketing team. Something like 80% of our leads come inbound, which is, amazing for a B2B SaaS company.
Do you want to impact the world and still turn a profit? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Growth Everywhere. This is the show where you'll find real conversations with real entrepreneurs. They'll share everything from their biggest struggle to the exact strategies they use on a daily basis. So if you're ready for a value-packed interview, listen on. Here's your host, Eric Siu.
Before we jump into today's interview, if you guys could leave a review and a rating and also subscribe as well, that would be a huge help to the podcast. So if you actually enjoy the content and you'd like to hear more of it, please support us by leaving us a review and subscribe to the podcast as well. Thanks so much. All right, everyone. Today we have Giles Palmer, who is the founder and CEO of Brandwatch, which is an online media monitoring company, plus more, which I'll let him explain in a second. But Giles, how's it going?
It's going well, thanks, Eric. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So why don't you give us a little background? I mean, what's your story, man?
Yeah, I never know when to start this one, right? But let's start in the year 2000. It's a bit of a long time ago, but I'll whisk through it quickly. I was working for a large company, Sky, which is a TV company, paid subscription TV company in the UK. I was in my late 20s. I'd been through the kind of private school, good university, all that kind of thing. I felt a little bit kind of like processed British beef, to be honest. And then I was working in a joint venture team there, and we did a deal with a company, and they ended up raising a whole bunch of money off the back of this deal. And I just thought, I don't want to be in this corporate gig anymore. So I left Sky, and with a friend of mine, we tried to set up a business which failed very quickly. Within 3 months, I lost some money, but it was it made me realize that I needed to be an entrepreneur. So I met somebody through that process, and he and I and two of his friends started a business in 2000 with like no idea what we were doing. Hang on a sec. Let me just ask somebody to be quiet.
Sure.
Thanks. And so we started this business. We were building open source software for organizations. We built content management systems. We built an online school. We were guns for hire. For the first 5 years of the 2000s, we were a bunch of guys, called ourselves web engineers. We ran it as a kind of a pseudo collective. We started off saying, right, we'll all get paid exactly the same amount of money, no matter what job we did. That didn't last very long, as some people were like, well, I'm more valuable than him, so why do I get paid the same as him? So that kind of was an interesting social experiment. And after about 5 years of learning how to build software, I wanted to build a product company. At that point, we had a piece of software which was effectively a search engine, and I was trying to figure out what to do with it. So it was this was 2006, and there was a kind of explosion of what's now become called social media. Back then, it was called user-generated content, and Technorati was this big blog search engine that was, in the news the whole time, and people were blogging all over the place. Forums were a reasonably big deal in the UK, and then Twitter kind of launched, and YouTube launched and was bought by Google, and there was definitely something going on. So I had this idea that brands needed to understand what all of these voices of these consumers were actually saying about them and their competition. And I came up with this kind of name, Brandwatch. Couldn't ever think of anything better. Ended up buying the domain name for $5,000. And me and a small team, which we still had in the company, like 8 or 9 people, built a brand tracking or a sentiment engine on top of this search engine that we'd built. And we launched it in August 2007. Managed to get a bit of traction, but basically just have been working on that for the last 10 years. It's crazy how that time's just gone by, and there's loads of ups and downs during that period, which we can come back to. But broadly, it's been a 10-year process of building, what I think of still as almost version 1 of the initial vision. And now the company is 440 people, and we've got last year we did over $50 million in revenues, and so on and so forth. So it's got to a decent scale at this point, but it all came from that kind of initial idea, which is probably the only decent idea I've ever had. And we got lucky, right? The market kind of came to us a little bit. Back then, there wasn't really such a thing as online listening or social listening, which is what we get called. There's a little bit more to it than that. But now it seems like it's a category, and Forrester write a report on it, and so on and so forth.
Love it. Okay. So here's the flow chart I'm hearing. So, you weren't happy at your corporate job in your late 20s. You ended up leaving, and then you guys kind of started like an agency. Is that correct?
That's right. Like a tech agency where we're all just kind of geeks hanging out, talking about open source software.
Okay.
Trying to figure out whether there was a business model in there.
And what was the timeline from there to starting Brandwatch again?
6 years.
6 years. Okay, got it. And then you started Brandwatch, and then now you guys $50 million plus, and then 440 employees, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Wonderful. All right. Yeah. So how do you guys make money?
Well, actually, December was the first month in about 5 years where we actually have made money. We've been burning money for the previous 5 years. Oh, we've raised $50 million. So,
okay, got it.
Yeah, or actually even more than that, but round about that number. But now we've still got enough of it left, and thankfully we're into the black now. So how do we make money? It's a subscription business. Simply, customers use Brandwatch to track their own brands, their competitors, do some market research around cohorts of consumers, and they pay a subscription. They pay as a subscription for that service, and the amount they pay varies on the amount of data that they consume.
Got it. Okay, and what does the average pricing look like?
I think the average pricing is £2,500 per month.
Got it. Cool. So you're mainly targeting kind of mid-market to enterprise.
Yeah, exactly right. We tend to be, it's not an enterprise-wide solution because it's reasonably targeted to a specific set of use cases. I mean, it does get used across multiple departments, but it's not a workflow tool. So I don't really think of it as an enterprise system, but we do target professional users because it's a pretty significant application. Like, it's not a toy sort of thing. So it's not cheap. So absolutely right. Mid-market to enterprise grade customers in variety of departments, but mainly marketing and around market research.
Wonderful. Okay. So in early days, how did you go about acquiring, let's just say, your first 150 customers?
Yeah. So we sold the first subscription in the month after we launched. So we launched in August 2007. But we didn't sell the second subscription until January 2008. So, on that rate, the business was not going to last very long. And back then, it was primarily me going out and meeting people face to face multiple times often and showing them the product and them saying, oh, this looks really interesting, but we don't have budget for it, or I've never seen anything like this before, or, not quite sure how we'd use it. So there was quite a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, but education, probably customer education, which in hindsight was horrifically kind of, it was quite painful, but at the time you just do it, whatever it takes. And then what we found was the early adopters tended to be agencies, like digital agencies in the UK, who tended to be back then, and still to a degree are today, a little bit further down the road than the brands in the work that they do on digital. And they would give us a project they would say, look, we want to do a piece of research here or there, on that we want to understand this market, or we want to understand how consumers are behaving over there. And we would use our own product to do that research and then write a report for them. And what it became clear that our product wasn't flexible enough. So we built version 2. It was a much more flexible product. And then we started selling it kind of with an inside sales team. So we hired a couple of very cheap salespeople. That's all we could afford. And we started to get a little bit of inbound to the website. And, we would convert roughly 1 in 10 of those inbound inquiries. And then what we did was gradually build up the marketing side of the business. I would speak at events, and then we would hire salespeople. And they would nearly always be the most successful salespeople we've had, even today, have been grads that we've trained up over the course of a year or so. And like what the most successful salesperson or sales year that we've ever had was a 24-year-old or 25-year-old young woman who'd been with us for 2 years, and she sold over 100 accounts in 1 year.
Wow.
And so we got this machine of inside sales demos, and then sign-ups and free trials, and then paid subscriptions. We got that machine kind of working over the first 3 or 4 years, and then we started wrapping kind of community managers around it, where we do outbound targeted outreach alongside the inbound stuff from the website. And even today, we get 15,000 unique visitors to our website every day, and over 100 demo requests. And so there's still a large inside sales engine which drives most of the new customer acquisition.
Got it. Wonderful. So what's working? So you guys have this sales machine right now. What's effective, or what's working really well for you in terms of marketing today?
What's working super well on marketing is big long-term programs. So the website in multiple languages. When our CMO joined us about 4 or 5 years ago, he said, the first thing he said almost was, the most valuable asset that we've got in this company is the product, and the second most valuable is the website. And there's no question, our website is responsible for so much of the performance of the marketing team. Something like 80% of our leads come inbound, which is, amazing for a B2B SaaS company. And that's been a long-term investment. So we have content writers, we have an internal web dev team, the website is in 4 different languages, and we maintain it all ourselves. So the website works really, really well, and we're constantly evolving it. What's also worked well, and it's only worked well because we've got to the scale that we've got to and we can afford it, is this user conference that we put together, which we branded Now You Know, NYK. It's a thing internally people talk about. Are you going to NYK? And as a kind of an internal kind of question, and people put Now You Know at the bottom of their emails. Now You Know is a kind of an internal mantra within the company, because we're a research company primarily, or we're a research application. So and we get something like 500 or 600 visitors that last year to each of the 2 events we do. We do one in US and one in the UK. And they came off the back of what we call masterclasses. So for the first 4 or 5, well, actually more, probably 7 years, we did these masterclasses, which started off as webinars. Then we would gather groups of people together for an afternoon and teach them how to use the product, and they would share stories with each other, and people love them. Our users love them. And then we kind of rolled it out into a bigger one-day conference called Now You Know, and now it's a 2-day conference both in the US and the UK. And so that's been amazing for brand awareness and retention of customers and education of customers, but it's really expensive. So I think it depends on where a company is in its journey. In the early days, I think masterclasses and webinars and how-tos and educational services and marketing to your existing customer base is so important, because as you scale, churn becomes the big hairy monster that will stop you getting to where you want to get to. So building in processes and educational systems that help customers get the most out of your product right from day one sets you up for long-term success. Or at least with hindsight, I can kind of look at it that way. At the time, we didn't quite realize that was the main method, that was the main purpose of these educational kind of seminars. But it has been super important as we scale the business.
So before we go any further, I just wanted to tell you about a problem that entrepreneurs have been coming to me with. They don't know what they need to do next to grow their business, or they don't have the right resources to execute on marketing needs. Oftentimes, they don't have a marketing strategy, or they don't know who or what to hire for. If this sounds like something that you've been dealing with, I have a solution for you. Single Grain is a growth marketing agency ran by yours truly that has worked with venture-backed startups to Fortune 500 companies to help solve their marketing issues. Our strong points are in SEO and paid advertising, and if you need help in other areas, we're always happy to tap into our network of highly vetted vendors that we can even help manage for you. So there's no need to stress yourself out trying to find the right people for the job, because we've got you covered. So if you're interested in this, just go to growtheverywhere.com/help to get more information. Once again, that's growtheverywhere.com/help. And you guys acquired BuzzSumo, is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
Cool. So Neil Patel and I talk about it a lot on our other podcast, Marketing School, about how we use it so much. So I guess what was kind of the reason for acquiring BuzzSumo? And I guess, we'll start with that first.
Yeah. So pretty much what you just said, actually. It's very rare that I don't know about you, but I find it quite unusual to come across a product that I just think is amazingly good. And BuzzSumo is amazingly good. I've been speaking to, and it's an unbelievable story. It was 3 people that built that company. I mean, when we acquired it, there were 10, so there were lots more involved, and those guys were important to the scaling of the business. But actually, the underlying business was kind of founded by 3 people. 2 built it, 1 front end engineer, 1 back end engineer, and a marketer. One of these guys was in New York, 1 was in London, and 1 was in Brighton, which is where we are on the south coast of the UK. They didn't meet each other very often. They'd never met each other before they started the business together. In fact, the marketer found the other 2 guys because they'd put together a beta system in their spare time, and I'm not even sure they'd ever even met face to face. When we acquired the business, they didn't have an office. They didn't have a single salesperson. It was unbelievably skinny, modern, efficient, all of those kind of good words. It was a business with an incredible product, great people, very lean, absolutely no wasted time or energy inside the business, and just like really an example of how to build a fantastic self-serve tool, which is used by 3,500 customers and has 400,000 freemium users. It's got scale, this thing. And I've been speaking to one of the founders for a couple of years because he's local and I know him a little bit. And I've been trying to convince him to sell his company for 2 years. Eventually, he said, "Look, Giles, we've got to either professionalize this and hire lots of salespeople or customer success people and take it to the next level and possibly raise some money and bring in a professional CEO because he didn't want to do that job, or we join up with somebody else and do it under their umbrella." So they'd had lots of different offers. They were looking for a culture fit. And I think that's what they found with us. They found a company that was going to value them, was going to allow them to carry on building what they were building, but with our support and with some of the things that we've learned with our marketing and our sales engine behind it. So, we came to a deal very, very quickly, like in a week or 2, and then just did it. So that the other reason from our point of view was I've been wanting to have a self-serve product for years, but all of our developers and our salespeople were like, well, why would we want to build a self-serve product when we're selling to medium to large organizations who don't really give a damn about that kind of thing? And we want to be building more things which are going to be useful to them, not building self-serve products. I'm not sure that the 2 are mutually exclusive, but I just thought I was more scared about being attacked from below. And I also wanted to have an engine, like a scaling engine that was, product driven. So I just thought, this is perfect. This ticks so many boxes. And it actually extends our product as well, because they've got the most incredible data on shares of any product on the web. So there were just so many reasons. And what's most pleasing for me, actually, is I think from our side, we haven't screwed it up, which it sounds a bit weird. But I think we were most worried about actually screwing up this great company that we bought and pissing off the people that were working there. So we've put in one of our absolute rock stars to be a kind of a part-time COO. So she kind of like runs it, or general manager. So she kind of runs it and is the conduit between BuzzSumo and Brandwatch. She's also VP of strategy for Brandwatch. So she's very embedded in our business. And she and the guys at BuzzSumo get on really well. And so far, they've beaten all their targets since we acquired them. And I think they're pretty happy with the way things are going. And we're not going to. Our task is not to interfere too much, but to gently support them in their ongoing journey.
Love it. And Giles, what was could you give us a rough range of what the sale price was?
We didn't go public with it. So it was not single digit millions, and it was not high tens sort of thing. So that's the kind of range.
Got it. Cool. All right. Great. Yeah. Hopefully.
It was a great result for their founders and a terrific acquisition for us. So I think it's a win-win. But it did take up a bunch of our cash, that's for sure.
Well, Neil and I can only hope that we get to keep our Conft account. So here's to that. Anyway, we use it a lot. Anyway, so tell us about one big struggle you faced while growing this business. Yeah,
sure. The internationalization of the business, for other people, I've heard has been a big struggle. For us, it's actually not been the biggest issue. We had an amazing guy start up our US operation, Seb Hempstead, and he took it from $0 to $1 million in 1 year, which was pretty incredible. And our product market fit's been good in other geos as well. So our German business is going well. Our business in France and in Singapore is good too. So the geo expansion's been not, it's there've been bumps, but it's not been super difficult. I think coming up with long-term product vision and strategy for the company to give everybody a sense of where we're going, whilst being nimble and agile, and adding things as quickly as we can. That's a challenge. Making big bets and being disruptive and building really interesting software is not easy. You have to take risks. And often if they don't go right, then there's a sense of, oh, well, you guys are falling behind. But so I think for me personally, like really nailing the long-term strategy, but still being nimble and agile, that balance I find incredibly difficult. I think we're getting better because we've hired people to help me with strategy, and they've put more structure around it, and we report on it more regularly. So that's been a massive challenge. Another challenge has been scaling out the product and engineering departments. Hiring product people in the UK has been really tough. We've homegrown a lot of people, but it's a new discipline, I would say, in the UK. Software, SaaS product management. It's not easy. You have to be, across lots of different things. Product market research, competitive research. You've got to understand technology. You've got to be a bit entrepreneurial. You got to be a marketer. I mean, it's not easy. So finding great product people has been very challenging. Getting the engineering team to scale has also been challenging. So all of the kind of classic things around building a software business. For me personally, I would say the most challenging thing has been evolving myself at a rate that was necessary as the company grew. So, in the early days, I would describe myself as the chief belief officer. So I had to believe everybody. Like nobody thought we were none of the staff really thought we were going to kind of get there, and I just relentlessly was positive and had this kind of sense that, well, I don't give a damn if nobody believes, I do, and we're going to do this. And then it started happening, and then I had to move to a kind of a chief, I don't know what at that point, but probably somebody who tried to get money in the door and make sure we didn't make too many mistakes and work on the product side with our engineering team. And then as we've scaled, I've brought in a senior team to surround me who are all terrific. And now I'm finding that I have to evolve again and become a collaborative coach type leader. And I'm just not very good at that. So I'm really having to kind of work hard on myself to level up, to become the leader that the company needs through the next phase. And I hope I can do it. But it's not easy. So I think that there are different times when different things have been challenging. And right now I'm finding like personal evolution being the most challenging bit of everything, because the business is pretty stable and doing really well. So it's like, okay, Giles, what the hell? How are you going to become a next level leader?
Well, that's a good segue, actually. I mean, how are you getting better personally?
Yeah, so I've had some coaching from 2 different coaches. That's been helpful. We're getting a coach to help work with our senior team because a couple of them are reasonably new and we haven't worked together for very long. So that's critical. I've deliberately putting more time in my calendar for reflection. I'm trying to be more mindful. When I can, I join in the kind of the daily meditation sessions here early in the morning. I'm just trying to basically just be a better human being, which I think ends up making me a better leader. And it's a journey, right? It's not easy. And I'm not in my 20s anymore. I'm in my 40s. So it's kind of, yeah, I look in the mirror more than look around myself, look around to my team and think, this is on you, mate. You've got to level up. You've got to improve yourself before you can expect the company to go to the next level.
Love it. Okay, well, final question. What is one must-read book you'd recommend to everyone?
I normally like the book that I'm reading last because my memory's so terrible. So the book that I'm reading right now is great. I would totally recommend it. It's Anti-Fragile by Nicholas Taleb. So I think that's a really interesting book. What did I read recently? Five Dysfunctions of a Team, I think it was called. That was interesting, especially when you're looking at team dynamics. Yeah, those are my two recently. And then I read Bruce Springsteen's autobiography, which I loved as well, but that's not very business orientated.
No worries at all. We'll drop all three of those into the show notes. So Giles, Giles, what's the best way for people to find you online? I'm
Joodoo9, Joodoo9, which is the name of my 5-year-old daughter's imaginary friend back in the day. So there's another story behind that. Or I'm Giles at Brandwatch.com.
All right, Giles, thanks so much for doing this.
Pleasure. Good to talk to you. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Growth Everywhere. If you loved what you heard, be sure to head back to growtheverywhere.com for today's show notes and a ton of additional resources. But before you go, hit the subscribe button to avoid missing out on next week's value-packed interview. Enjoy the rest of your week, and remember to take action and continue growing.